Hello and welcome to Prime Business. I am Pius Kujubaka. This evening, the African Development Bank is urging Ghana to fast-track structural transformation for rapid, inclusive and sustainable growth to address socio-economic challenges. This was contained in the bank's 2025 report released yesterday at its annual meeting in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. More in this report.
According to the bank, this is very crucial to reducing unemployment, income inequality and poverty. Poverty stood at 29.5% in 2023, while unemployment was at 13.7%. Income inequality was, however, high at 43.5% in 2022, compared with regional peers. The report pointed out that the 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index showed that 24.8% of the population is multidimensionally poor, while an additional 20.0% is classified as vulnerable to multidimensional poverty. The World Bank in 2023 said extreme and overall poverty rates continue to decline in urban areas but are going up in rural areas. According to the Social Protection Program Spending and Household Welfare in Ghana report, extreme poverty was highly concentrated among households without formal education.
I want to stay all longer with the bank because they are also projecting that Ghana's economy will grow by 4.5% at the end of the year. More in this report.
Government is hoping that growth will hit 4% at the end of this year. However, the African Development Bank in its latest report on Ghana thinks that the country will do far better than this, projecting a growth rate of 4.5%, or even better than that. This new growth rate is even higher than the World Bank's forecast of 3.9%, and even the IMF's own of 4%. The African Development Bank believes that a lot more variables in the country and even on the international market will work in favor of Ghana, resulting in economic activities picking up strongly in the coming months. However, when it comes to inflation, the African Development Bank was not that optimistic about the Ministry of Finance and Bank of Ghana's projection, averaging around 11.9%. Meanwhile, the highlight of the African Development Bank annual meetings in Ivory Coast will be the election of a new president taking over from the current boss, Dr. Kiyomi Adesina, whose tenure is coming to an end. 5 candidates vying to take over from him.
Presidential advisor on the economy, Seth Tekpe, has emphasized that government plans to go back to the international capital market to raise funds for development after the completion of the current IMF program. Speaking at the Graphic EcoBank Economic Forum in Accra, Mr. Tekpe said government has designed a clear debt repayment mechanism to ensure prudent and sustainable debt management. Here's a report.
Monkeys move by sizes. If we want to be in the upper middle income country, or even now lower income, middle income country, we should do better than comparing ourselves to the low income countries, because the consequence is that we are losing concessional financing and grants. And that is what is taking us to the debt market. And to link it to your question, you can't go to the debt market, whether domestic or external, and then like you were doing with T-bills, because you had a lot of concessional financing, instead of paying down your debt, if you borrow, lend to pay, but instead of, you paid only interest only, the TB is interest only. Our sovereign bond was interest only. Our domestic bonds were interest only. And then you are rolling over the principal. And this awareness came in 2014, when with 3 years to go, we would have had to cough $750 million US to pay the first sovereign bond, whilst we were adding other sovereign bonds. This is the rationale for going back to the Constitution and establishing a sinking fund, a debt repayment mechanism. We stopped, and the consequence, default, haircuts.
Tax partner at PwC Ghana, Abeku Jan Kwanzaa, emphasized the importance of effective implementation tax exemption policy.
You say you cannot carry out a particular stuff, so you need the states to have their skin in the game. Then the state is also saying that if your business is valued X, give me a portion of the X. And whenever you think you do not need me any longer, come and then buy back that. I am hoping that those who stood in the sun to vote for on the 7th of December, when certain exemptions come to them, they would ensure that this provision of law is passed. And why it matters a lot to me is that, look, we keep hearing how much people get to pay to get bills passed and all those stuff. If the laws are passed and we do not ensure the laws work, it's actually at a loss to you and I. So if you see the next exemption going to Parliament, let's all be very interested to find out why the state on this particular account is departing and not taking an interest.
Also speaking at the event, Mr. Osei JC from the Governor's Office at the Bank of Ghana stressed the urgent need for economic diversification to strengthen Ghana's resilience against external shocks.
It is important to recognize that macroeconomic stability is a necessary condition, but not sufficient, to fully reset Ghana's economy. Stability strengthens the economic fundamentals, but structural transformation provides the direction for sustainable and inclusive growth. This implies that to fully reset Ghana's economy, we must broaden the growth model beyond the extractive sector. Undoubtedly, gold and cocoa are key drivers in the recovery process, but are limited in scope. We need to build on the extractive sector with value addition and diversification. What would we achieve by that? Long-term prosperity and employment generation.
It made an edition of the daily graphic EcoBank Economic Forum provided a platform for seasoned experts to share actionable recommendations aimed at fostering sustainable economic growth.
Nearly 1 in 6 Ghanaians, representing 18.4% who dealt with public officials and institutions in 2024, gave a gift, mostly cash, as a bribe to access services. That's according to the latest report from the Ghana Statistical Service on governance. The report further indicated that 70% of Ghanaians believe that the current system offers little or no space for them to influence decision-making in governance. More in this report.
The Governance Series Wave 1 report by the Ghana Statistical Service indicates that bribery was more prevalent among men, who accounted for 68.3% of those who admitted to giving gifts or money to public officials, compared to 31.7% among women. Head of Social Statistics at the Ghana Statistical Service, Umar Seidu, emphasized the urgent need for structural reforms and stronger anti-corruption measures to rebuild public trust in state institutions.
So in the first wave, which is conducted in January 2025, for the reference period January to December 2024, we realized that 56% of the population have come into contact with a public organization, not once, many times. And out of this, 18.4% have indicated that they have had to pay bribes to facilitate the process or to get whatever they wanted to do done. And money is the mainstay in payment of bribe. 85% indicated that the source, what was given is money. But we have a significant number also giving, saying that they give other services besides money as bribes. And we try to look at the institutions that top in terms of institutions coming into contact with them. Health institutions, educational institutions are the highest. But in terms of bribe taking, we see that the police, the various departments under the police are highest in terms of those that have come into contact and have had to pay bribes.
Urban residents were also more likely to pay bribes, representing 64.3% of reported cases, as opposed to 35.7% among rural dwellers. At a regional level, Greater Accra recorded the highest incidence of bribery at 22%, closely followed by the Ashanti region with 18.1%. James Eshen's report for Joy Business.
Let's now shift to the energy sector, because Energy and Green Transition Minister John Jinapor has assured investors of regulatory stability in the energy sector as offshore drilling resumes. Speaking at the opening of the West Africa Mining and Power Expo in Accra, the minister outlined ambitious plans to ensure reliable electricity for industrial growth while diversifying the nation's energy mix. More in this report. Ghana seeks to position itself as a regional energy hub. The West Africa Mining and Power Expo, WAMPEX, is organizing a 3-day expo with the aim of attracting thousands of mining and energy professionals from across West Africa. Speaking at the opening of the event, Minister of Energy and Green Transition John Jinapor pledged to strengthen regulatory stability in Ghana's power and petroleum sectors.
That if power goes off or fluctuates, even for a very brief moment, it can halt most, if not all, of these activities. It could even damage equipment and lead to costly delays. Therefore, as minister responsible for that sector, it is my duty to ensure that we have stable supply of power so that your machines can run optimally and efficiently, reduce unplanned downtime, and also reduce repair costs. But more importantly, ensure that the safety of your workers are guaranteed.
Also at the ceremony was the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Emmanuel Amakufibua, who stated that the global energy transition has created unprecedented demand for critical minerals, calling for the urgent need for clarity demands that will retain traditional extraction models.
We offer more than just minerals. We offer partnership in the truest sense, where your investments are secured by predictable policies and the rule of law, where your operations are supported by modern infrastructure and skilled local talent, where your success is measured not just in quarterly returns, but in community transformation and environmental preservation.
Meanwhile, Acting Chief Executive of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, Ahmed Naktongma, expressed hope the review of the mining laws will bring sanity in the sector.
And we're also making our own inputs into the Act because now it's a draft stage. And like you said, it has to be preceded by the mining policy, which we have already made inputs into the policy. So we hope that whatever inputs we have made into the mining policy will feed into the Act itself when it's finally done. So we are currently working with the Minerals Commission on that. There are different kind of proposals, but I wouldn't want to preempt the Act for now. But just know that we are looking for a more consultative, a more interactive, a more integrated mining sector and see how we can continue to provide proper value for both shareholders and the state as well.
The 2025 West Africa Mining and Power Expo was under the theme, the Mining and Power Hub, driving sustainable investment opportunities in West Africa. The established mandate of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, in holding the country's petroleum industry accountable is being threatened by inadequate financial support. PIAC says its budgetary allocations have in recent years suffered major setbacks, impacting the effective and efficient discharge of their duties. Originally sourcing its funds under the annual budgetary funding amount, there is currently no funding allotment to support the works of the statutory body established by an Act of Parliament. Emmanuel Bright-Kweku joined the committee's first public forum for the year held in Kumasi and filed this report.
The Public Interest and Accountability Committee is an independent statutory body established under Section 51 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011. It is mandated to promote transparency and accountability in the management and use of petroleum revenues in Ghana. The committee has in the past years enjoyed funding support in carrying out its mandate through the annual budget funding amount from the Finance Ministry, but the squeezed fund allotment is adversely impacting the activities of the committee in ensuring transparency and accountability in the petroleum sector. Richard Kojo Elima is a member of PIAC.
The new government has amended the law, and now no agency is going to get any money from the ABFE. In fact, 95% of the ABFE is going to go into the big push agenda of government, which is the big infrastructure agenda of the government. Only 5% remaining will go into the District Assembly's Common Fund. So effectively, PIAC has been shut out of all funding. We do a lot of outreach programs, which cost a lot of money. Look at the event we've had today. We are supposed to do this in most of the regions across the country. We are also supposed to go for district engagements. We are supposed to meet interest groups. All these cost money. It will also affect our ability to exact accountability from the government. Because if no agency is getting part of the petroleum funding, the question is, what are we going to also monitor?
Although there is an assurance from the government for an alternative funding source, PIAC wants an established allotment directly from the Petroleum Holding Fund. A committee held its first 2025 public forum on management and use of the petroleum revenues in the Ashanti region after being hit with financial constraints. The event, fully funded by Good Governance Africa, a non-governmental research and advocacy organization, saw the members of the public, civil organizations, and other stakeholders deliberate on the judicious use of proceeds from the petroleum sectors. Edwin Tay-Sapong is a senior research officer at Good Governance Africa.
This engagement is critical because revenues that we get from petroleum explorations will at a point in time come to a halt because petroleum will be exhausted at a point in time. So whatever we are putting, the monies we are getting from it should be able to take care of our cares today and guarantee the futures of our next generation. So if we sit down as Ghanaians and leave our leaders to decide at their own choosing what to do with their resources, it will come back to haunt us.
In its 2024 annual report, the PIAC is recommending increased efforts to secure investments into Ghana's upstream petroleum industry. Former chair of the National Peace Council, Most Reverend Professor Emmanuel Asante, impressed on the implementation of recommendations for the needed national development.
It shouldn't be just the petroleum resources that we should be concerned about. I think we should also be concerned about other resources in our country. The cocoa industry, and the many other areas. Monitoring should be very, very, we should be concerned about the monitoring of these resources that are also coming from those areas.
For Joy News, my name is Emmanuel Pratkweku.
You're still watching Prime Business, and we've got to cross over to the premises of Yoko, where my colleague James Aveji has a quick update for us on the latest development following the arrest of Chairman Wontumi. And of course, James has joined us live now for a quick update. James, what more are we learning?
We just getting confirmation that Chairman Wontumi has just been granted bail to the tune of some 50 million Ghana cedis with two sureties. Just got off the phone with one of his counsels, Andy Apiakubi, who confirms to me that indeed he's been granted bail and that they are working around the clock as we speak to meet the bail conditions so that they can get him home. And so that is the latest we are picking, which confirms that indeed he's currently in the Ioko premises as the interrogations for today might have come to a conclusion for his bail. Earlier, we had Govt Ebwadami, the former Attorney General, also coming around, and he went in there to spend some few minutes, about some 10-15 minutes in there, and then came back and drove away. Then we got a confirmation some 10 minutes ago that Chairman Wontumi has finally been granted bail to the tune of some 50 million Ghana cedis, and that the lawyers are currently working around the clock to meet those bail conditions so that he can leave the Ioko premises back home. And so we are still here waiting for he himself as well as his lawyers to give us an official word if they are able to meet that bail condition and leading to his release. But I can also confirm to you that a number of the party supporters have left the place. Just about 15-20 of them are still hanging around to see to the final release of Chairman Wontumi this evening before they retire to their bed. And so that's the latest. We can confirm now that he's been granted bail 50 million Ghana cedis and with two sureties, and the lawyers are working around the clock to meet that for his official release from the Ioko premises. Pius.
The indication that they will be able to meet the bail's conditions by close of work today.
Well, when I spoke to Andy Apiakubi, his exact words were that he has been granted bail and they are working hard to meet the bail conditions in order to get him out of here, quote unquote. That's what he tells me. And so, as far as the lawyers are concerned, they are resolved to meet those bail conditions. It is still unclear whether any of those sureties will need to be verified. If the sureties, the two sureties need to be verified, that is where the difficulty will be, because whatever surety they provide need to be verified by the IOCO officials before it is admitted for his bail to go through. And so that we cannot confirm. But as far as the lawyers are concerned, they are resolved to meet those conditions, the 50 million cedis as well as the sureties, so that he can be released. And so if that will be possible, it should happen within the next few minutes to an hour or two, so that he can leave the IOCO premises.
And again, James, earlier, following that arrest, we were learning that, he's been admitted at the hospital, and now we want to know his health status. How is he?
At about, on our bulletins, the 6 p.m. bulletin on Radio Newsnight, the the youth organizer of the party confirmed to us that he is in good shape. In fact, in the afternoon, we also had that confirmation that he is in good shape. We learned, was at the 37 Military Hospital, where he had doctors attended to him, where he was. In fact, it was when we got here at 7 p.m. More than an hour ago, that we had a confirmation that he had been released from the hospital and so been brought back to the IOCO premises for the interrogation to continue. And so we want to believe that he's in good shape now, for which reason doctors have cleared him for the interrogation to continue, leading to the bail condition.
Well, thank you so much, James Aveji, bringing us up to speed in relation to the bail condition that has been granted to Chairman Wontumi following his arrest by IOCO. We shall follow that story and be bringing you more updates as and when development unfolds in that space. Let's shift focus and continue with our business stories we have for you. The Chief Executive Officer of the Tree Crop Development Authority, Dr. Andy Osei-Ukra, says the authority is taking strategic steps to enhance the export of Ghana's tree crops. Speaking at the 9th Ghana CEO Summit in Accra, Dr. Okra noted that the authority is focusing on increasing the quality and volume of tree crops such as cashew, coconut and oil palm to meet the growing demand of the international market.
As you know, the Tree Crop Development Authority is responsible for regulating and then developing 6 selected tree crops, i.e. cashew, oil palm, rubber, shea, mango, coconut. So these are the 6 value chains that we are working with. And as we took over, there was a need for us to engage with all stakeholders and actors. So we quickly engage the true people themselves, the farmers on the field, the traders, aggregators, exporters, and then processors. One key thing that we wanted to do is want to make sure that they have a very conducive environment to work. And this is one of the sectors too that is also being dealt with a lot of challenges. So we needed to engage the people directly and ensure that we can ascertain from them what actually the solutions that we can prescribe. And it's gone very well. And we have come to at a point where we realize that as part of the government strategy and focus, value addition, and making sure that the president said we should feed Ghana in that order, feed Ghana industries with the raw materials. So we needed to do that. And these value chains also experience the same thing. We have an issue with cashew, we have issue with rubber, and then we have an issue with shea.
Finally, before we go, Protect Black Women is turning attention to the intersection of race, gender, and economic opportunity. Speaking to Joy Business co-founder Christine Mills says Black women continue to face systematic challenges that limit access to business growth.
Women is a global movement dedicated to dismantling the barriers Black women face across multiple sectors, including the economy. Speaking to Joy Business, co-founder Christine Mills said disparities in access to finance, leadership roles, and digital opportunities aren't just social issues, they're economic ones that cost industries innovation and growth.
Protect Black Women is a global organisation, and our mission is to empower Black women and to challenge the system and the systematic issues that Black women face in different areas of their lives. So in health, in the home, in economics, online, in the judicial system.
Member of Parliament for Brent East, Don Butler, said the UK's economic system is riddled with embedded biases that disproportionately affect Black women in the workforce.
When people understand that white women are paid less than men, then you understand that then Black women are paid less than white women and therefore less than men. So there's that compounding of the intersectionality of women. And what Protecting Black Women does is it unites Black women and their purpose. So it shows that we can be connected, we can do various different things. So breaking down stereotypes of Black women. In the UK, you don't hardly see Black women golfing, but you know, our founders of Black Women Rising are very keen golfers. And so what we're doing is breaking down those barriers. And it's not just about one person, it's about the system. And what we have to do is break down the system that discriminates against Black women.
Co-founder of Protect Black Women unveiled the Accra Principles, a global call to address the economic and structural inequalities facing Black women.
Actually, this is quite a special time for us. As I mentioned, we've got women who have come here from the UK, from the US. We're meeting some phenomenal women here in Accra with this purpose of protecting Black women and girls. And actually, we have devised what we're calling the Accra Principles. And on the 28th of May, we've actually been invited to the British High Commission to declare the Accra Principles. So if anybody wants to understand a little bit more about this concept, what it means, I would highly recommend that you go to our website. It's www.protectblackwomen.com, where you'll learn a lot more about the work that we're doing, the principles that we've established, and hopefully you can sign up and join and support us.
As calls for equity grow louder, Protect Black Women is leading effort to reshape the global economy to include and empower Black women.
Thanks so much for watching Prime Business. I am Pius Kojo Baka.
Prime Business.